right into the second half of today's conference. For those of you who are tuning in via live stream, we welcome you. God bless you all for tuning in. We've already covered approximately 2 hours already of what the Lord has for us concerning the last days, church, and the coming persecution, and how to be ready. And he is starting by laying a foundation as to what's currently taking place around the world before we can receive in his understanding how to prepare. Right now, what I'm going to do, we are going to, and this is for the sake of the viewing audience, this is even probably for the sake of some of you who may be here for the very first time, who it could be completely new to all that's taking place with the hour in which we're living in, the last days, biblical prophecy, all the events. I've decided to put together a compilation. It's going to be approximately 20 minutes long, but it's going to show you as an eye-opener, and I'm talking specifically to the ones, again, who may be completely new to all this, as to what is taking place in these last days around the world. And I'm going to show you this compilation. Let me double-check a couple things, though. Hold on. We see the headlines happening in today's world. Many of us understand how clearly and concisely things are happening so quickly, matching biblical prophecy. For some of you, you're going to see and maybe know what's all, what you're about to see is already, you're aware of. But again, for some, it may be an eye-opener. And so for the sake of the viewing audience, and for those who are here, I want us to play this compilation, and then we're going to get more into what the Lord has for us today. Will, please play the compilation.
There have been men, many of them, who claim to be a new Messiah. And tonight we're going to meet 3 of them, including one in the faraway Philippines who has amassed a flock, he says, numbers in the millions. Poor people who give what little they have to the man they believe is the second coming of Jesus. Bill Weir journeyed there to meet him.
Throughout the Bible, prophets, angels, and Jesus himself all promised that the Son of God would return to create heaven on earth. And throughout the ages, billions of Christians have wondered, when? But what if the second coming is here, now? There are a number of would-be messiahs who claim exactly that, and few are more physically convincing than a former Russian traffic cop named Sergei Torov. In the woods of rural Siberia, he is known as Vissarion, the teacher, and around 5,000 disciples live around him, growing their own food and feasting on his every word.
And my whole body was trembling. The trembling is not coming again. Well, it's very emotional to me.
Meanwhile, in London, David Shaler says he is the true Lord of Lords, but unlike Vissarion, no one believes him.
That doesn't bother me because I was chosen by God.
The former British intelligence agent says his body was filled with the Spirit of Jesus in 2007, a conviction which intensifies on a visit to Jerusalem.
We're in the Church Holy Sepulchre, and this behind me is supposed to be the tomb of Christ. Well, I'm Christ, I'm not in the tomb, I'm not dead yet.
But with no support, he lives in a squatter's camp outside London.
My agreement with Jesus, I don't ask for money off people. If you're the Messiah, you shouldn't be asking for money, you should have faith that God will look after you.
Proves to me that you are a son of God!
But that is not a sentiment shared by Pastor Apollo Quibelor, the most successful of the world's self-labeled saviors.
The official coming of the Son of God was in April 13, 2005.
He was an obscure evangelist from the rural Philippines until 2005, when he announced that God had appointed him Christ on earth. His reward, for a pure life, sinful thoughts, anger, lust, any of those things, you don't experience those on a daily basis?
As a human being?
Yes.
I have already overcome all of those.
There is no apocalypse in Kibeloi's message, no rapture or final judgment. Instead, he preaches that he is the model of Christianity, and as more people follow his example, God will gradually turn the earth back into the Garden of Eden. Do you perform miracles?
For me, the greatest miracle is the changing of that spirit within.
But healing the sick, the manifestations of Jesus' powers, you're able to do that?
We have healing.
You are
healing and miracles happening.
After taking his place as the appointed son, Kibeloi's ministry has exploded. He claims to reach 6 million followers with his satellite TV network, numerous publications, private jet, and personal helicopter.
He enters this hotel conference room in Hartford, Connecticut with a security team that rivals a head of state. An adoring audience greets him with calls of daddy and sings his praises. He is 60-year-old Jose Luis de Jesus Miranda from Puerto Rico, a preacher, an evangelist to be sure, but to his followers and in his own eyes, he's more than a man of God. Just ask him.
I'm Jesus Christ's man in front of you.
That's right. He says he is the second coming. He claims in 1973 he had an epiphany.
When Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, came to me, he integrated himself within me.
So why you?
I don't know.
In the mid-'80s, Miranda started his own ministry called Creciendo en Gracia, or Growing in Grace. It's a religious movement that claims a presence in more than 20 countries, mostly in Central and South America, but also in the United States. From Hartford to his headquarters in Miami, he says there are more than 30 teaching centers nationwide.
We don't give membership cards. So I don't know how many I have, but certainly are millions. Every week we grow.
And with a 24-hour cable channel, netcasts of his sermons and radio programs, Miranda is out to spread the word. Those who believe him, like these followers in Miami, the Son of Man is back, also embrace his unique interpretation of the Bible. For example, sin no longer exists.
God doesn't see you as a sinner. For me, you are a perfect spirit.
There's also no such thing as the devil.
Satan is a Hollywood character.
As for prayer, he says it's a waste of time, and he calls all other religious leaders liars.
Xavier Louise went to Siberia to meet the man who says he's the Messiah.
Let's go. Time for Christmas, man.
Veselin is wearing his feast day robes.
See how beautiful it is out here.
Today, this remote corner of Siberia is celebrating Christmas. And for Veselin, along with all the other members of this sect, Christmas comes on January the 14th. Men, women and children ignore the fact that the temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius as they eagerly present themselves a benediction. They've been promised a Christmas gift to end all others, a meeting with Jesus himself.
People have come from villages all around. First, we purify ourselves with this blessed water. And then we go up to the monasteries.
Everyone here is a member of the Church of the Last Testament. The sect is thought to be one of the biggest and most influential in Russia. These people believe that not only is Jesus alive, but that he came back to earth almost 50 years ago and is now living among them.
Tonight, Beijing is firing a rhetorical shot across the bow after a U.S. destroyer sailed right through waters claimed by China. A newspaper closely tied to the Chinese Communist Party encouraging the government to convince Washington that China is, quote, not frightened to fight a war with the U.S. in the region. The spokesman for the Chinese Defense Ministry demanded the transits stop.
The United States should take concrete measures to correct the wrongdoing and prevent such incidents from happening again.
China is now threatening to expand military activities in the area to warn away U.S. vessels and aircraft, as we saw during an exclusive flight on a U.S. surveillance plane over the same islands this May. State Department urged China to avoid further escalating tensions.
We want to see those tensions de-escalate and calm down, and we don't believe it's in anybody's benefit for there to be any militarization of these reclaimed features.
Moved into the Crimea, this is where they went first, right around Sevastopol. And it shows this is a key issue. It's not just for the West.
The Kremlin's media czar on Russian state TV has threatened the United States with a nuclear strike in his news broadcast, which was aired at the same time as polls closed in the Crimean referendum about secession from Ukraine. The remarks by Dmitry Kiselov on Russia's main state broadcaster came as the United States said it would not recognize the referendum result and threaten further sanctions.
We go overseas now to an alarming mid-air scare. A Russian spy plane nearly colliding with a crowded passenger jet. International leaders are outraged, and the number of incidents like this is growing. Russia flexing its muscle and ratcheting up tensions with the West.
The dangerous encounter began in the skies over the Baltic Sea.
1755, initially stop flight level 22, so it's due to unidentified traffic in the area.
That unidentified traffic, a Russian military plane flying with its transponder switched off. Sweden's defense minister was furious, declaring, "This is serious, this is inappropriate, this is outright dangerous." In recent months, Russian jets have buzzed NATO airspace repeatedly.
Breaking overnight, another provocation by North Korea. It's launched a medium-range missile into the sea. The test firing violates multiple United Nations resolutions.
On the deck, below the bridge wing.
Well, it's being called one of Russia's most aggressive military moves in recent memory. Russian fighter jets flying low and close to a U.S. naval destroyer. And take a look at this map behind me here. You see this area right around the Balkans. The fighter jets swooping in extremely close right in this area.
American sailors got the intimidating air show in the Baltic Sea yesterday as Russian pilots made several simulated attacks on their ship.
You may come across the flight deck, coming in low, bridge wing level. Below the bridge wing. Below the bridge wing.
Navy officials called the maneuvers extremely aggressive and warned of escalating tensions between the U.S. and Russia.
This weekend, Japan is recovering from not one, but two major earthquakes, both centered near the southern island of Kyushu.
This is the moment the second quake struck. The terrifying roar of back-to-back earthquakes barely 24 hours apart.
Sometimes the pictures tell the entire story. This is the scene in southern Japan right now. Roads ripped apart, buildings turned to rubble, flattened like pancakes. Entire neighborhoods, in fact, askew after a series of powerful quakes.
The 7.0 quake hit in the middle of the night where people were sleeping. Japanese TV shows buildings that are shattered now or even collapsed. Some are on fire. The rubble in the streets make it difficult for rescue teams to get to victims.
Crews urgently searching for survivors and the injured, going door to door in the dark.
And just one day after the two quakes in Japan, the third hits Ecuador. As we just mentioned, both zones are along the so-called Ring of Fire.
A very powerful 7.8 earthquake shook large portions of Ecuador yesterday. Nearly 80 are reported dead.
Today's quake hit along Ecuador's coastline just before 2 p.m.
Another earthquake to report this morning. The 6.1 magnitude quake shook the Pacific island of Tonga. This happened around 7:30 at night, their time, just after midnight our time. And then last night in Ecuador. Now this morning we are seeing more images of damage in Ecuador after that magnitude 7.8 earthquake.
But as this map shows, northwest Arizona has been hit by nearly 20 earthquakes, ranging from magnitude 0.7 to magnitude 2.6. This all started March 29th when a 2.3 quake happened just outside of Littlefield.
It's unusual for us to see that many earthquakes and continuing over a period like that.
A strong earthquake shook Myanmar and had a magnitude of 7.0. No reports of casualties or major damage. At least 6 people died in Pakistan last week.
If you forgot your ticket to a soccer game in Argentina, it's not a problem because you can use the microchip that's been embedded under your skin by the team. An Argentinian soccer team planning experimentally to this point to offer supporters a chance to implant a microchip in their skin. Lets them walk right through, like Easy Pass in your car.
It's an Easy Pass.
Just walk right into the stadium.
But the Easy Pass is in your car, not in your wrist.
But see, I'm not really thinking about it in terms of sports as much as I would love to put one in my kids.
Just to know where they are?
Like, I know it's creepy and really futuristic, but my dog has one.
Right.
And she ran away and ended up, we live downtown, and she ended up, in Harlem. And somebody did deliver her to a facility, a place, and they scanned her, and then they found us. And I honestly am not completely against chipping my children.
Have you proposed this to the girls?
I haven't. No, I thought I would do it in their sleep.
Now they know.
That's because of a proposed law by Kuwait that would require people coming to visit to submit DNA tests so they can tag anyone who comes into the country. This database would be the first of its kind in the world.
Tonight, would you want to live forever? How about your parents? Would you want to be able to ask their advice long after they're gone, or maybe even spend an afternoon with a deceased spouse?
As CBS 2 explores, cloning a loved one is no longer the stuff of science fiction because of digital immortality. Bina is obviously not a real woman, but she does have the mind of one.
I think there'll probably come a time when robots like Bina will be living amongst us.
She's a clone, sharing not only the appearance of a very real woman named Bina Rothblatt, but also her exact memories, attitudes, and beliefs.
This is one opportunity for us to start thinking about changing the way we look at what it means to be human.
It's technology we've so far only seen in movies.
Self-awareness, manipulations. Now, if that isn't true reality, what is?
But in real life, Bina is one of the first clones to be implanted with a mind file representing an actual person's consciousness. The robot can even see thanks to facial recognition software, so she actually knows who she's talking to. As many as 56,000 people have already signed up on the Foundation's website to start uploading the contents of their minds with the hopes of being cloned.
It's fascinating, but I think this has a lot of emotional, psychological ramifications.
Neuropsychologist Dr. Sanam Hafez says while the technology is incredible, it has the potential to interfere with the natural progression of human life.
The way this world works is someone passes away, you get divorced, you move on.
But in the future, the robots will not only be able to make the same facial expressions as the people they're modeled after, they will even sound like them. And if you, like me, are completely creeped out, I understand.
DIA's iconic dark horse, unofficially known as Lucifer, will get a shade darker tomorrow night. In observance of Earth Hour, the airport will cut the lights at some of its landmarks. Now first, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., DIA will turn off its LED sign along Pena Boulevard. At 8:30, Lucifer will go dark for 1 hour. The airport also encourages employees to turn off non-essential lighting. Earth Hour was created as a way to raise awareness about energy conservation.
Microsoft is working on what they're calling holoportation. So it's like teleportation, but you physically aren't going anywhere, just your virtual self. Holoportation uses a type of 3D capture technology to transmit a model of you to anywhere around the world in real time.
Well, some say corporations know more about each of us than the government ever will. And when it comes to new technologies like biometrics, one expert says that technology is advancing faster than our ability to contain it.
Would you swallow this pill so you didn't have to remember another password or wear an electronic tattoo identifying you to get better deals? It's not sci-fi. These are real, and it's just the beginning of a tech revolution.
All kinds of things that we don't even think about, where we shop in the store, what things we pick up, are starting to be recorded and analyzed.
Tom Keenan of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute says biometric ID is advancing faster than our ability to contain it, and he calls it creepy.
There's no way society can keep ahead of this.
We've seen retinal scans in airports. Now even some U.S. schools use them to speed up cafeteria lines. Cars use them instead of keys. Banks are lining up to implement the technology at ATMs. It makes it easier for us, but also easier for the people who watch us.
Terrorists in Iraq have reportedly beheaded 4 Christian children who refused to denounce Jesus and convert to Islam.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has officially declared that the Islamic State militant group is committing genocide against Christians and other religious minorities across the Middle East.
Facing persecution, murder, and torture each day, Christians overseas are persecuted for their religious beliefs. These individuals are being slaughtered, raped, and sold into slavery and forced to watch as their churches are burned down. This morning, the State Department labeled these atrocities as genocide. This is mass genocide by ISIS and other radical jihadist groups that is taking place throughout the world.
But weren't we supposed to be out of here before all of these things took place?